I fell for a guy out of my league. Have you ever looked at someone and thought, there's no way someone like me could ever be with someone like him? Yeah, that was me. I didn't just fall for a guy, I fell for a guy who felt completely out of my league. The kind of guy people turn their heads to. The kind of guy who walks into a room and instantly owns it without even trying. Confident, smart, charming, and me. I was just there. Average, invisible, safe. I never imagined my story would cross paths with his. It started on an ordinary day. Nothing special. No dramatic music. Just life happening the way it always does. I was at a small gathering with friends, trying my best not to stand out too much. That's when I saw him. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He didn't need to. People naturally gravitated toward him. They laughed at his jokes. They listened when he spoke. And I remember thinking, yeah, he belongs in a completely different world. But then something unexpected happened. He noticed me. Not in a dramatic, movie-like way. Just a simple glance, and a smile. A small smile. But for me, it felt like everything stopped. I brushed it off, of course. I told myself I was overthinking it. Guys like him don't notice girls like me. That's just not how the world works, right? But then he walked over. Hey, he said casually, you look like you're trying to escape. I laughed nervously. Is it that obvious? Only to someone doing the same thing, he replied. And just like that, we started talking. At first, I was careful. I kept my guard up. I didn't want to say anything stupid. I didn't want to embarrass myself, because in my mind, I had already decided something very important. This isn't going anywhere. I had already convinced myself that he was out of my league. And when you believe something like that, it changes the way you act. You hold back. You shrink yourself. You don't show who you really are, because deep down, you think, why would he care anyway? But he did care. He kept the conversation going. He asked questions. He listened. And not in that fake, polite way, but genuinely. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. And that scared me. Because when someone out of your league starts noticing you, you don't feel lucky. You feel terrified. Terrified that it's temporary. Terrified that they'll realize who you really are. Terrified that one day they'll wake up and think, what was I doing? Still, we kept talking. Days turned into weeks. Messages turned into late-night conversations. And somewhere in between all that, I fell for him. Not just for the way he looked. Not just for his confidence, but for the way he made me feel. He made me feel like I mattered. And that was new for me. But here's the problem, I never stopped believing he was out of my league. Even when he chose to spend time with me. Even when he laughed at my jokes. Even when he opened up about his life. A voice in my head kept saying, this won't last. So I started doing something dangerous. I started sabotaging it. I overanalyzed everything. If he replied late, I assumed he was losing interest. If he seemed distant, I thought he found someone better. If he complimented me, I questioned if he meant it. I couldn't accept that someone like him could genuinely like someone like me. And the worst part, I never told him how I felt. Because how do you confess your feelings to someone you believe is out of your league? You don't. You stay quiet. You play it safe. You pretend it's nothing, until it becomes everything. One night, we were sitting together, talking like we always did. The conversation got quiet, but not awkward. Just calm, and then he said something that changed everything. Why do you always hold back? I froze. I don't, I replied quickly. He smiled slightly. You do. You're here, but not really here. I didn't know what to say. Because he was right. I was never fully present. I was always protecting myself from a future that hadn't even happened yet. Do you know what your problem is? He continued. I shook my head. You don't see yourself the way I see you. That hit me hard. Because in that moment, I realized something. Maybe he was never out of my league. Maybe I just put him there. maybe I was the one who created that distance. We spend so much time ranking people, deciding who is better, who is more attractive, who is more successful. But love doesn't work like that. Love doesn't follow rules. It doesn't check boxes. It doesn't care about leagues. It just happens, but only if you let it. And I wasn't letting it. I was too busy doubting myself, too busy thinking I wasn't enough, too busy believing I didn't deserve him. So I had a choice to make. I could keep holding back, and eventually lose him, or I could take a risk. For once in my life, I chose the risk. I do like you, I finally said. My voice was shaking. My heart was racing. And for a moment, I thought I had just ruined everything, but then he smiled. Not the casual smile from the first day. A real one. I was wondering how long it would take you to admit that, he said. I laughed nervously. And if I never did? Then I would have told you, he replied. That moment changed me, not because I got the guy, but because I realized something deeper. The biggest thing holding me back wasn't him. It was me. It was my insecurity, my fear, my belief that I wasn't enough. After that night, things felt different. Not perfect, not like a fairy tale, but real. We started spending more time together. Not just talking, but actually sharing our lives. He told me about his fears, his failures, the pressure he felt to always be the confident guy everyone expected. And for the first time, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. He wasn't perfect. He was human. And that changed everything. Because the image I had created in my mind, the perfect guy out of my league, was never real. It was just a story I told myself. And the more I got to know him, the more I realized, he had insecurities too. He had doubts too. He had moments where he didn't feel enough too. We were more alike than I ever imagined. And slowly, I started changing. Not for him, but for myself. I stopped overthinking every message. I stopped assuming the worst. I stopped trying to be someone I wasn't. And instead, I just became honest. Honest about my feelings. Honest about my fears. Honest about who I really was. And you know what happened? He didn't pull away. He got closer. Because people don't fall in love with perfection. They fall in love with authenticity, with realness, with vulnerability. And for the first time, I allowed myself to be seen, completely seen. But growth isn't instant. There were still moments where my old thoughts came back. Moments where I questioned everything. Moments where I felt like I wasn't enough. But the difference was, I didn't let those thoughts control me anymore. I recognized them. I challenged them. And I reminded myself, just because I think something doesn't make it true. Time passed. And what we had became stronger. Not because it was easy, but because we chose it. We chose to communicate. We chose to understand each other. We chose to stay even when it felt uncomfortable. And that's something I never would have experienced if I had let my fear win. Looking back now, I realize something powerful. I didn't just fall for a guy out of my league. I fell for someone who helped me see my own worth. But here's the truth, he didn't give me that worth. It was always there. I just couldn't see it. We often think love is about finding the right person, but sometimes, it's about becoming the right version of yourself. The version that believes they deserve love. The version that doesn't put others on a pedestal. The version that understands their own value. Because there is no such thing as, out of your league. That's just a story we tell ourselves when we don't feel good enough. And that story can cost you everything. It can stop you from taking chances. It can stop you from expressing your feelings. It can stop you from experiencing something real. It almost cost me him. But more importantly, it almost cost me myself. So if you're listening to this, and you feel like you've fallen for someone who's out of your league, I want you to ask yourself one question: who decided that? Was it them? Or was it you? Because chances are, it was you. And if you can create that belief, you can also destroy it. You can choose to see yourself differently. you can choose to believe that you are enough. Because you are. Not perfect. Not flawless, but enough. And sometimes, that's exactly what someone else is looking for. So don't hold back. Don't shrink yourself. Don't let your fear convince you that you don't deserve something real, because love doesn't belong to the perfect. It belongs to the brave. And the moment you stop seeing yourself as less than, is the moment everything changes. I fell for a guy the first thought was out of my league, but in the end, I realized the only thing out of place was my doubt.